Hi Year 10s. Today we are doing sketching parabolas using factorization. So we're going to use the skills you've learned from a few topics ago to actually sketch graphs. So I'll give you a chance to copy down the notes and then we'll actually just copy down the first 2 pages, that diagram and this one, and then you can copy it down as we do it. Alright, so the generic form of an equation of a quadratic is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So that's our generic equation. And here we have a graph. So a few key points you need to know. So the x-intercepts are there and there. It's where the graph cuts the x-axis. The y-intercept is where it cuts the y-axis, and the turning point is the axis of symmetry. Remember, every parabola is symmetrical. So if you could look at the axis of symmetry, you can find the turning point. Remember the turning point, the x value, is halfway, or is the average of the 2 x-intercepts. Alright, and remember with a parabola, I'll just quickly remind you that a parabola might have 2 x-intercepts, it might have 1 x-intercept, so it might have 2, like in this case. It might have 1 x-intercept, like that, and it may have no x-intercepts, if the graph looks like that. So, yeah, just be aware of that. Alright, to sketch a parabola, just like we normally do with a straight line graph, to find the y-intercept, let x equal 0. To find the x-intercepts, if there are any, there might be, remember, 0, 1 or 2. You let y equal 0 and you have to factorize and solve using the Null Factor Law. And then you can find the turning point using symmetry. Alrighty, let's just get straight into it. It says here, sketch y equals x squared minus 2x. Alright, so the first thing I always start with is a y-intercept. Let x equal 0. So if you write it out like that, it shows the teacher what you're actually finding, and it gives you a hint of what to do. Let x equal 0. So we go y equals 0 squared minus 2 zeros is 0. So our y-intercept is 0, 0, the origin. Now let's go x-intercept, let y equal 0. Alrighty, so if y is equal to 0, we've got x squared minus 2x equals 0. So how do we do this? We factorize. Take out x as a factor, and we get x minus 2 equals 0. Now, since the other side equals 0, we use the Null Factor Law. Remember, there are 2 answers. Here we get that one there, we get x equals 0, and this one here, x minus 2 is equal to 0, and so we get x equals positive 2. So that point there is 0, 0. I like writing the coordinates before I do my little graph. That point there is 2, 0. Alright, now we've done that. Let's just sketch a graph. Remember, a sketch is not an accurate, you don't need to draw it, you don't need you need a ruler for the axes, but you don't need to measure out each number. So we've got 0, 0 for the x-intercepts and 2, 0. So make sure you label it like that. And our y-intercept is at 0, 0 as well. It's an upright parabola. Alright, so we know that we've got these 2 points. So we know our graph must look something like that, because we know it's upright, so it's a positive parabola, and it looks something like that. We've got our x-intercepts at 0 and 2, we've got our y-intercept at 0, and our turning point is down here. So how do we find the turning point? Remember the turning point, the x value is the average of those. So we can work out our turning point here. The x value, the average is you add the 2 together and divide by 2. So 0 plus 2 divided by 2, 2 over 2, which is equal to 1. So that x value is 1. And that makes sense because it's in between 0 and 2. Use common sense. How do you find the y value? You substitute x equals 1 into our equation. So we go y equals 1 squared minus 2 lots of 1. 1 squared is 1, minus 2, which is negative 1. So our y value of our turning point is negative 1. So our turning point, all right there, is 1, negative 1. So that value there is negative 1. It's always a good idea to label it here, 1, negative 1. Excellent, and you've done. You've labelled your key features, your x-intercepts, your y-intercept, and your turning point. Alrighty, let's do another one. Okay, so y equals x squared plus 6x plus 5. It is the same process. Maths is about process. Let's start with y-intercept. Let x equal 0. This one's easy. So it's 0 squared plus 6 zeros is 0 plus 5. So we get y equals 5. I like to write that point as a coordinate, 0, and the y value is 5. So we've got our y-intercept, 0, 5. X-intercept, let y equal 0. So we let y equal 0, so we've got our equation, x squared plus 6x plus 5 equals 0. Now, factorising from a few topics ago, we have to use our two brackets. First, check for any common factors, so there's none. So remember this, so x and x. It's a plus there, so both values are positives. And factors of 5 are 5 and 1, so that's easy, 5 and 1. Now we use the Null Factor Law. We get x plus 5 equals 0, so here we get x equals negative 5. X plus 1 equals 0, so we get x equals negative 1. And again, I like to, just because I like to have my coordinates written, so I don't get confused, I write minus 5, 0, and this one is minus 1, 0. Alright, now it's probably a good time to sketch our little graph. So, label the important features, so x and y. So we've got minus 1 there, we've got minus 5 there. Remember, it's just a sketch. And our y-intercept is 0, 5. So we'll make that about 5. So just make sure it's a sensible looking graph. And it's a positive parabola. So it means it's an upright parabola like that. So if we sketch it like that, it looks something like that. So I would accept that in a test. It's neat and it's good to sketch. There's one thing we're missing, and it's our turning point, which is here. So remember how to work out the turning point. The x value of the turning point is the average of these two values, the two x-intercepts. So we've got minus 5 plus minus 1 divided by 2. Minus 5 plus minus 1 is minus 6 divided by 2, and it's minus 3. Just make sure that makes sense. Minus negative 3, that's right in the middle of it. You can pretty much see that straight away, but I'm showing my workings out. How do we find the y coordinate of our turning point? We know the turning point, x value is minus 3. Now we substitute that into the original equation. And be careful with this. Minus 3 squared is positive 9. Plus 6 times minus 3 is minus 18 plus 5. So a lot of people make mistakes and they say that's negative 9. So just be careful with that. So we work that out. Negative 9 plus 5 is negative 4. And that value is negative 4. Yes, it's a sensible answer. Always make sure your turning point is sensible. And see, I've labelled the x-intercepts, the y-intercept, and the turning point. Perfect. Good job. Let's do another one. All right. So this question here, you look at that and you should immediately see that's a special type of equation. Y equals x squared plus 6x plus 9. You think to yourself, that's a perfect square. So have that in mind. Keep that in mind. Okay, we do the same process. Y-intercept, let x equal 0. And that's really easy. 0 squared plus 6 zeros is 0 plus 9. So y is equal to 9. And that point is 0, 9. Okay, now when we do the x-intercept, let y equal 0. Whoops. Okay, so we go x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 0. Now remember, to factorise a perfect square, if you know the shortcut rule, this is just x plus 3 all squared is equal to 0. Another way to write that is x plus 3 equals 0. So hopefully this is bringing back memories from 2 topics ago. And then if you use Null Factor Law, you get x plus 3 equals 0, so x equals negative 3, and you get the same for that one. So we've got two values. We've got x equals negative 3 twice, which means it's only there once, because it's the same value, it's the same point. So if we write that point, it's negative 3, 0. All right, now we are ready to sketch our graph. So if we have our graph here, remember, don't do it too small in your book. Make it as big as you can, nice and neat so it makes sense. Okay, so we've got negative 3, 0, which is there. That's our x-intercept. There's only 1 this time. And we've got our y-intercept at 0, 9. So that looks pretty reasonable. Now, if you think about it, it's an upright parabola, so we know it looks something like that. So the only way we can do this with one x-intercept is if the turning point was actually on that x-intercept as well. So if the turning point's there, our graph is going to look something like that, because we've only got one x-intercept, which is also the turning point. So don't forget, right at the end, make sure you say the turning point is also negative 3, 0. And that's it. So you just have to be aware that when there's only one x-intercept, it's going to look something like that, or it might be upside down, but so far they're all positive parabolas. Okay, now the last question is a little bit different. We've got a graph, and it goes through, the x values go through negative 3 and positive 1. And it says here, find A and B and the turning point. Okay, so we've got, in factorized form, y equals a plus x, a plus something, and then x plus something else. So remember that might be x plus 3, x plus 5, or whatever it is, depending on, we look at our x-intercepts to find out what these values are. So you can pretty much just work backwards from this. When we know that the x-intercept is minus 3, that would mean that one of the x-intercepts is x plus 3. Sorry, one of the factorized brackets. Because if that's x plus 3, remember in reverse, when we work out the x-intercept, you'd say x plus 3 is equal to 0, so x equals negative 3. So in the brackets, that would be x plus 3. And when x is equal to positive 1, our other bracket would be x minus 1. Because then when you say x minus 1 equals 0, you'd say x equals positive 1. So that's, we've got our values there. So it says find A and B. So to answer the question, A is equal to 3 and B is equal to negative 1. Alright, and then that's our equation. And if you wanted to expand it, you could always expand the brackets to find the equation in expanded form. And it says here find the turning point. So we need to know the turning point. We use symmetry again. So the turning point, the x value, is the average of those two values. Minus 3 plus 1 divided by 2, minus 2 over 2, which is negative 1. So our x value is negative 1, which makes sense because it looks like it's right in between those two. And how do we find the y value? We substitute x equals negative 1 into our equation. And here's our equation so far. So it's in factorized form, that is fine. We'll just substitute our value in. So x is equal to negative 1. So we've got negative 1 plus 3, and here we've got negative 1 minus 1. So we can solve this. This would be 2 in the first bracket. Remember it's multiplied, and that one's negative 2. 2 minus 2 is negative 4. So let's have a look. And that's negative 4, and that is a sensible answer. Sometimes people mess up with the negatives and they might get an answer of positive 4. But then the turning point would be there, and it doesn't make sense because it's an upright parabola. So always use common sense when you've done your turning point, and also with your x and y intercepts. And that's all that's asked for that one. It didn't ask for the y-intercept, so you've done everything that's asked for. I'd like you to have a go at 7C, question 1 to 11. See your teacher if there's any problems. See you soon. Bye.